The power had gone out again. Josie Whittaker stood in her tiny Savannah apartment kitchen, staring at the blank microwave clock like it might flicker back to life if she willed it hard enough. A humid stillness clung to the walls, thick as molasses. Morning sun pushed through the slats in the blinds, lighting up the peeling laminate countertops and the breakfast she couldn't afford to make. Eggs that had gone bad 3 days ago. Toast that needed a toaster with actual power. She closed the fridge slowly, like she was trying not to disturb the silence. The cheap appliance gave a soft moan, settling back into its place in her worn life. Behind her, a small voice called out, muffled by the bedroom door. "Mama, is it morning yet, Maisie?" Josie wiped her palms on her thrift store skirt and crossed the room. "It's morning, baby. Go ahead and start getting dressed, all right?" she said through the door, trying to keep her voice even cheerful. "Big day." A pause. "Did the lights go out again?" Josie hesitated, then offered a soft laugh. "They're just resting. Like we did last night. Now hurry, sweet pea. We don't want to be late." Inside, Maisie began humming a little tune, her voice light, oblivious. Josie exhaled. Her daughter's optimism could make a cracked floorboard feel like solid ground. She returned to the kitchen table and sat with her purse in her lap. $3. 1 bus fare and maybe enough change for a juice box at the corner store. That's all she had to get her through a job interview that could change everything, or nothing. She pulled out the envelope containing her resume. Printed at the library, black and white. She had ironed her blouse the night before with the steam from her bathroom shower. No one had taught her how to prepare for a second chance, but she was doing it anyway. A knock on the table jolted her. Maisie stood in the doorway, in her pink dress, the hem frayed, the little embroidered flower on the collar stitched by Josie's tired hands 2 nights ago. "I look okay?" she asked, spinning once. Josie blinked hard. "You look beautiful. Come here." Maisie climbed into her lap. Her hair smelled like the lavender soap they shared for everything. Baths, dishes, hand-washing laundry. Josie held her close. "I'm going to need you to be my little helper today. Remember how we talked about the interview?" Maisie nodded, serious now. "Grown-up stuff. You sit quiet, draw if you want. No running around." "Deal?" Maisie pressed a pinky to hers. "Deal." The city bus hissed to a stop 15 minutes late, brakes whining, graffiti scarred across the back window. Josie hoisted Maisie up the steps with practiced ease, the driver barely glancing at them. They sat halfway back, where the cracked window let in breeze. As the bus rolled through downtown Savannah, Josie stared out at the cobblestone streets, the leafy oaks draped in Spanish moss, the iron-wrought balconies of houses she once imagined herself living in. She had always thought she'd get there through design, fabrics, sketches, dreams stitched into seams. But life had altered the pattern. The Holloway Group building rose into view, modern glass and angles surrounded by stately brick and old money. Josie felt her stomach twist. She reached for Maisie's hand, squeezing it as the bus jerked to a stop. Inside the lobby, air conditioning blasted from polished vents. Everything gleamed. Floors like mirrors, chandeliers like rain frozen mid-fall. Josie stood straighter, smoothing her blouse, then knelt to tuck a loose curl behind Maisie's ear. "We're gonna be brave today," she whispered. "Like superheroes?" Maisie whispered back. Josie smiled. Exactly like that. She stepped to the front desk. Josie Whittaker. "I have an interview. 11 o'clock. The receptionist tapped her keyboard with lacquered nails, barely glancing up. "ID?" Josie fumbled in her purse. The woman glanced at Maisie with a flicker of disapproval. "She's with me just for today." A silent pause. Then a visitor badge slid across the counter. "Floor 12. HR will meet you." Josie thanked her and turned toward the elevator, back straight, pulse racing. As the doors closed, she caught her reflection in the mirrored panels. Exhausted eyes, chin lifted, a little girl clinging to her side like an anchor made of light. They rode up in silence. The higher they went, the tighter Josie's chest felt. She stepped out into a quiet hallway with framed aerial photographs of Savannah and muted gold sconces lining the walls. A woman approached, sleek in black slacks and a maroon blouse. "Ms. Whitaker." "Right this way." Josie followed, Maisie in step beside her, until they reached a glass-walled conference room. A carafe of water sat untouched on the table. The assistant gestured for her to wait and disappeared. Maisie sat and began drawing quietly with the pen Josie always kept in her bag. Josie smoothed her skirt again and again, eyes flicking toward the hallway every few seconds. Footsteps. She looked up, and time cracked open. Grant Holloway stepped through the door. Tall, tailored suit, hair like shadows just before dusk. His expression casual, until his eyes met hers. He froze. Josie forgot how to breathe. He blinked once, twice. Then his gaze slid to the child beside her. Maisie looked up, curious. Grant's face changed. Color drained. His jaw tightened, and then he just stared. His polished composure gave way to something raw. Recognition, confusion, shock. Josie's voice barely left her throat. "Hello, Grant." Silence. Maisie tilted her head. "Mama, is that the boss?" Josie couldn't answer. Grant looked at the child. Then back at her. His lips parted, but no words came out. The pen in Maisie's hand scratched against the paper, a soft sound in a room suddenly full of thunder. He set the folder he was holding on the table without looking down. "I didn't know if you—" he began, then stopped. "You're here for a job," Josie said, her voice thin but steady. "Just like anyone else." Grant looked again at Maisie. She was drawing a dress, purple with flowers. The same kind Josie used to sketch in college notebooks, the same kind Josie used to sketch that summer night 6 years ago. He stepped back like the room had shifted beneath him. But he didn't leave. "I'll need a moment," he said to someone in the hallway, voice sharp but quiet. The door clicked shut. Maisie didn't notice. She was humming. Grant slowly sat down across from Josie, eyes never leaving hers. When he finally spoke again, it was like pulling breath from deep water. "Is she—" Josie looked down, then nodded. A beat, a breath, and just like that, their history sat in the space between them, undeniable, unspoken, unfinished. If you enjoyed this video, comment 1 to let me know. If not, comment 2. Your thought mattered to me either way. Grant Holloway hadn't moved. He sat across from Josie, hands resting on the glass table like he didn't trust them not to shake. His eyes flicked back to Maisie again, small, innocent, completely unaware she'd just altered the course of his life. "She's 6?" he asked, voice low. Josie nodded, her gaze locked on the drawing Maisie was still scribbling. 6.5. Grant leaned back slightly, as if trying to fit everything into place, but nothing aligned. The last time he saw Josie, she was standing barefoot on the steps of a beach house on Tybee Island. Sunset. A blur of wine, laughter, and something that felt like possibility, then gone by morning. He hadn't even known her last name. "You never told me," he said. "I couldn't," Josie replied quietly. "I didn't have your number. You left before I woke up." "All I had was a first name." His eyes narrowed slightly, not with anger, but with the sting of sudden realization. "That night, I didn't think you'd want more. I figured it was just one of those things." "I didn't either," Josie admitted. Not until a month later. They sat in that heavy quiet, the kind that isn't empty, but full of everything that should have been said years ago. Maisie looked up at them, crayon paused mid-air. "Mama, is this still the interview?" Josie gave a soft smile, brushing a hand over her daughter's curls. "It is, baby. Just a little different than I expected." Grant rubbed his jaw, processing. "You live here, in Savannah? Born and raised, never left?" He blinked, still stunned. "And all this time, you weren't exactly easy to find, Grant." She leaned forward slightly. "You didn't leave a trail, just a first name and a memory." His mouth opened, then closed again. Maisie stood on her chair suddenly, holding up her drawing. "Look, I made this for you, Mama." Josie reached for it, but Maisie turned and handed it to Grant. "This is you," she said, pointing to a tall stick figure with blue scribbled eyes. "And this is me and Mama. We're at the park." Grant stared at it. A child's drawing. So simple, so devastating. Josie cleared her throat, reaching out quickly. "Maisie, sweetheart, let's sit for a little bit, okay?" Maisie obeyed, sliding back down with the quiet obedience of a child who sensed grown-up tension. Grant placed the drawing gently on the table. "She's beautiful. She's smart, kind, and mine," Josie said, her voice soft but firm. "She's my whole world." A knock on the door broke the moment. Lena McBride peeked in, clipboard in hand. "Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Holloway. I didn't know you'd taken the meeting yourself." Grant stood, reflexively straightening his blazer. "Thank you, Lena." "Can you give us another minute?" Lena hesitated, eyes shifting between Josie, the child, and the CEO with a strange intensity. Then she nodded and stepped back, closing the door. Josie turned to Grant, standing now herself. "If this changes things, if it means I don't get the job, I understand." "What?" His voice snapped up. No, Josie. You came here on your own. You didn't know I was the CEO? No." "I had no idea until I saw your face." He looked at her. Really looked. Her worn blouse. The thinness in her cheeks. The quiet strength behind tired eyes. "You're not here for charity." "No," she said quickly. "I need work. Maisie needs stability. That's all." He nodded slowly, as if every word needed its own breath. "Okay, then we'll proceed like any other candidate." A long silence passed. Josie stared at him. "Do you want to be involved in her life?" The question dropped like a stone in water. Grant's shoulders tensed. His mouth moved before his brain caught up. I don't know what to say. I didn't even know she existed until 10 minutes ago." "I'm not asking for anything," she said quickly. "No handouts. No favors. I needed this job. I didn't come here to drop a bomb on your life." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Well, too late for that." She looked down, hurt flashing in her eyes. "I didn't mean it like that," he said quickly. This is a lot." Maisie reached for Josie's hand, sensing something shift. "Are we leaving now?" "Soon, sweetheart." Grant crouched slightly, bringing himself to Maisie's level for the first time. "Maisie, right?" She nodded shyly. "I'm Grant." "It's nice to meet you." "You're very tall," she said seriously. He let out a short, disbelieving laugh. I've heard that before. Maisie grinned, then leaned against Josie's arm. Is he your friend, Mama? Josie looked at Grant, then back at her daughter. He's someone I used to know. A pause. Can we be friends again? Maisie asked. Grant's eyes glistened, just for a second. I'd like that. Josie stood, her posture shifting. Maybe we should step out. I don't want to make a scene. Grant nodded and opened the door. Lena was waiting, pretending not to eavesdrop. Lena, he said carefully, Ms. Whitaker is a candidate for the admin role. Please have HR continue the process. No shortcuts. Lena's eyebrows arched slightly. Of course. Grant looked back at Josie. We'll talk again. Josie gave a small nod, took Maisie's hand, and followed Lena down the hall. Behind her, Grant remained standing in the doorway, watching as the woman, and the child who might be his daughter, disappeared into the polished glow of his company's corridors. He had built a life of steel, schedules, and skyscrapers. But in just 15 minutes, a woman with tired eyes and a little girl in a pink dress had cracked the whole thing open. And now? Now he wasn't sure what would come pouring through. The waiting room outside HR smelled faintly of lemon polish and something sterile, like fresh paper or rules you couldn't bend. Josie sat stiffly in the corner chair. Maisie curled into her side, still humming softly under her breath. The little girl was sketching again, this time a house with 3 windows and a crooked chimney. Josie couldn't stop watching the elevator. Her chest was tight. It wasn't just the interview anymore. Grant had seen Maisie, looked into her eyes and knew, without confirmation, what she had carried alone for 6 long years. He hadn't gotten angry. He hadn't left. But he also hadn't said he wanted to be involved. Ms. Whitaker? The HR assistant's voice pulled her back to the moment. We're ready for you now. Josie rose, smoothing her skirt. Maisie stood too, clutching her drawing. She'll need to come with me. The assistant hesitated. It's highly irregular. I understand, Josie said, but I don't have other options. The woman relented, offering a polite but clearly strained smile. This way, then? Inside the small HR office, the light was softer, the walls lined with tasteful prints of Savannah's skyline. A man in his 50s sat behind the desk, salt and pepper hair, pressed shirt, a Holloway Group pin on his lapel. Louis Ames, head of human resources. He didn't stand when she entered, just gestured to the chair across from him. Ms. Whitaker. Please sit. Josie did. Maisie climbed onto the seat next to her, swinging her legs. I'll be direct, Louis began, folding his hands. Your application came through the standard queue. Your resume is modest, but acceptable for the administrative support role. I know it's not much, Josie replied, keeping her voice even. I've had to put my daughter first, but I've worked hard. I'm fast, I learn quickly, and I don't miss deadlines. He nodded, but didn't smile. And now you're here, and the CEO walked into your interview. Josie blinked. Yes. Would you care to explain your relationship with Mr. Holloway? The words landed like a dropped glass, quiet, but sharp. Josie took a slow breath. We met years ago. It was brief. We didn't stay in touch. I didn't know he was the CEO until I walked into that room. Louis studied her face. He didn't seem upset. I don't know how he feels, she said, her hands tightening slightly in her lap. But I'm not here because of him. I applied like anyone else. I need the work. And the child? Maisie looked up at the mention of her name. Josie placed a hand gently on her daughter's shoulder. She's mine. And she won't interfere with my work. I'll have proper childcare lined up if I'm hired. Lewis was quiet for a long moment. Then, finally, he spoke. HR policy doesn't cover every situation, but we do value integrity, Ms. Whitaker. If you're given this job, it'll be because you earned it. I wouldn't accept it otherwise. He nodded slowly. Very well. We'll be in touch within 48 hours. Josie rose, offered a polite thank you, and walked Maisie out with quiet dignity, though her stomach churned with uncertainty. By the time they reached the lobby, the adrenaline had begun to wear off. Her heels clicked across the marble tile with each exhausted step. She pushed open the heavy glass doors into the warm, humid afternoon and stopped on the steps, unsure what came next. Maisie tugged at her hand. Are we going home now? Josie bent down and cupped her daughter's cheek. Almost, baby. Let's just sit for a minute. They found a shady bench beneath a wide oak just outside the building. Josie pulled out her phone and checked the balance in her bank app. $2.61. Not enough for a cab. They'd need to take the bus again. She hoped it wasn't late. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She thought about calling Shauna, thought about crying. But no tears came. Instead, her phone lit up a known number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello? Josie. Grant's voice was quieter this time. Not cold. Not formal. Just real. Yes, she said softly. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I do, he insisted, then paused. Can I see you? Just for a few minutes. To talk. Somewhere neutral. Josie glanced at Maisie. She's with me. That's okay. There's a bakery across the square, corner of Barnard and Liberty. Do you know it? I do. I'll be there in 10 minutes. He hung up. Josie stared at her phone, heart hammering. What is it, Mama? Change of plans, she said gently, standing. We're going to get a treat. Maisie beamed. Cookies? Maybe just one. 10 minutes later, they stepped into Clementine's bakery, where the air smelled like sugar and hope. Tiny string lights lined the ceiling. A cheerful clerk greeted them. Grant was already seated near the back, out of sight from the main windows. He stood when they approached, not because he was supposed to, but because he didn't know what else to do. Josie slid into the chair across from him. Maisie sat beside her, still drawing. He glanced at the little girl, then met Josie's eyes. I didn't sleep with the woman I was dating after you. I told myself it was timing, that maybe we just didn't connect the right way. But the truth is, it was you, one night, and I never forgot. Josie looked down. Her hand rested on Maisie's back. I didn't mean for this to happen like this. I wasn't hiding. I was surviving. Grant leaned forward slightly. Is she mine? Yes, he inhaled. The moment pressed in on both of them, fragile and full. I should be furious, at you, at myself, at fate. Then be. I can't, he said, because I'm sitting here looking at a little girl who drew me into her life before I even earned the right. Josie blinked back tears. She doesn't know anything. Not yet. She knows you're the boss. She knows you're kind. That's all. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. I run a company. I don't know how to show up in a child's life without making a mess. You start by showing up. They sat in silence. The kind that doesn't demand resolution. Just presence. Maisie held up her newest drawing. It's you again. But this time I gave you a puppy. Grant let out a stunned breath and smiled. Josie laughed softly for the first time that day. And just like that, something unspoken shifted between them, not solved, but seen. If you enjoyed this video, comment 1 to let me know. If not, comment 2. Your thought mattered to me either way. The rain came soft and sudden that evening, tapping gently on the kitchen window of Josie's apartment, like it had come to check in on her. She stood at the stove, stirring a pot of boxed macaroni for Maisie, the steam curling upward into the dim glow of the overhead light. Maisie was humming from the floor, legs crossed, crayons scattered around her, and a drawing halfway finished on a piece of scrap paper. This one had 3 people. Again. Josie didn't ask who they were. She already knew. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She dried her hands and picked it up, her pulse kicking up just a little faster when she saw the name, Grant Holloway. The message was short. Can we talk tonight? No pressure. Just me. No suits, no plans. Just me. Josie stared at the words for a long time before typing back. Not tonight, but maybe soon. She didn't know what soon meant. But she knew that tonight, she needed to breathe. After Maisie was in bed, curled up under the quilt Josie's grandmother had pieced together one worn patch at a time, Josie pulled out her sketch pad, the same one she hadn't opened in months. Maybe longer. She stared at the first blank page. A dress formed in her mind. Soft lines, strong seams, a silhouette that said more than words could. She began to draw, pencil whispering against the paper, like it remembered how to move before she did. Her phone buzzed again. Lena McBride. Josie's brows lifted. She hadn't expected a message from the company's creative director. I saw your portfolio in HR's file. You're talented. I'd like to chat. No promises, just curiosity. Coffee this week? Josie's fingers hovered over the screen. Yes. I'd like that. She looked over at the sketch she had just begun. It was nothing more than a curve and a hem, but it held more truth than anything she'd said out loud in days. The next morning arrived wrapped in sunlight, and the sound of Maisie's giggles echoing off the hallway walls. Mama, I picked out my outfit. Josie stepped out of the bathroom and nearly choked on her coffee. Maisie had managed to wear a tutu, a raincoat, and 2 different shoes. For what exactly? Josie laughed. For if we get the job. We? Maisie nodded solemnly. I was good yesterday, so I'm part of the team. Josie knelt down and fixed the coat, then pulled her daughter close. You're the best part of my team, always. The phone rang just as they were finishing breakfast. Josie's heart leapt. It was Lewis from HR, she answered, her voice tight. Mrs. Whitaker, this is Lewis Ames. I wanted to inform you that we'd like to offer you the position. Entry-level admin support, with the usual 90-day probation. Josie nearly dropped the phone. Thank you. Thank you so much. There'll be a formal email with your start date. Monday morning, 8:30 a.m. She hung up and let out a sound, half laugh, half sob. Maisie blinked. Was that the job? Josie scooped her up. That was the job. Maisie screamed with joy, arms wrapped around her mother's neck. Later that night, after tucking Maisie into bed with a bedtime story and a kiss, Josie sat on the small sofa with a glass of water and stared at the ceiling. She should have been excited. She was. But underneath that joy was uncertainty. She hadn't heard from Grant again since the message. Was he giving her space? Was he overwhelmed? Or was he retreating? Her phone buzzed once more. Another message. Grant, I meant it. I don't want to mess this up. For her. For you. I don't even know what this is, but I'd like the chance to find out. Josie's fingers trembled on the keys. She typed, deleted. Typed again. Let's talk after I start work. When the dust settles. His response was instant. I'll wait. The weekend passed in a blur of laundry, to-do lists, and a trip to the grocery store where Josie finally, let Maisie pick out a little carton of juice without doing mental math in her head first. Monday came, with nerves tangled tight in her chest. She dropped Maisie off at Shauna's salon. Her best friend had agreed to help with before and after school care. Maisie waved from the front chair, feet swinging as she played with hair clips. You got this, Shauna said as Josie turned to leave. Head high, shoulders back, make them regret not hiring you sooner. Josie smiled, the words wrapping around her like armor. The Holloway Group lobby looked different now, not because the chandeliers sparkled any brighter, but because Josie walked in like she belonged. She was early. Lewis met her on the 12th floor, his usual measured tone now tinged with something almost like respect. This is your desk. You'll be assisting Lena McBride's department. Josie blinked. The creative team? Correct. Miss McBride requested you personally. Her mouth parted slightly. I thought this was an admin role. It is, Lewis said, but Lena likes her assistants to have vision. She mentioned something about sketches. Josie glanced around the floor. Glass walls, open layout. Boards filled with fabric swatches, design notes, digital renderings. She hadn't let herself dream of this. Not really. She hadn't dared. Later, around noon, while entering calendar notes and organizing vendor files, she felt a presence before she saw him. Grant. He paused just outside the office, looking at her with unreadable eyes. Hi, he said. Hi, she replied, heart thudding louder than the keyboard clicks around her. He looked like he wanted to say more. Then Lena's voice called from her corner. Grant, we've got that layout meeting in 10. He nodded, then glanced back at Josie. I'm glad you're here. She smiled quietly. So am I. He walked away, and Josie turned back to her screen, her lips still curved upward, her world shifting, slowly, surely, with every step she took forward. The rhythm of the office settled into Josie like a second skin by the end of her first week. Fast, layered, always moving. She was learning to ride its current, filing vendor contracts, prepping Lena's meeting decks, even remembering how each department took their coffee. But even with her desk now familiar, her login now permanent, and her nameplate neatly centered, Josie still felt like she was walking a tightrope, half belonging, half waiting to fall. Her sketchbook stayed hidden in her purse, zipped tight like a secret she wasn't ready to share. Not yet. That Friday afternoon, as the creative floor emptied for lunch, Lena approached Josie's desk with her usual no-nonsense air, binder tucked under her arm. You have a minute? She asked. Josie blinked. Yes, of course. Lena gestured with a quick tilt of her head. Walk with me. They stepped into the corridor, shoes clicking softly against the floor. Lena stopped near the windows overlooking the courtyard, glancing down at the notebook in her hands. First, she said, you're doing a good job. Professional, focused, and you don't gossip. Josie managed a nervous smile. I try to keep my head down. Lena arched an eyebrow. Sometimes that's smart. Sometimes it means you're afraid of being seen. Josie's stomach flipped, but she said nothing. Lena handed her a folder. Inside were Josie's designs, the same ones she'd submitted on a whim with her application, barely daring to hope they'd even be glanced at. "I went through your sketches," Lena said. "You have an eye for movement, texture. You think in shape, not trend." "That's rare." Josie blinked. Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." Lena leaned slightly against the window. "I want you to help with the spring concept board. 1 hour a day, unpaid, off the clock." Josie hesitated. "I'm happy to contribute, truly, but I don't want to cross any lines." "You're not." Lena's voice softened, just a notch. "You've got something, Whitaker, but you need to believe it before anyone else will." Josie looked down at the folder again, her throat tightening. "I thought that part of me was over. The sketches, the ideas." "It's not," Lena said simply. "It's just buried. Dig it out." She turned to leave, but paused. "Oh, and keep an eye out. HR's been sniffing around." Josie blinked. "What do you mean?" "Some people don't like surprises, and your name is attached to a very high-profile man now." Her eyes met Josie's. "Savannah's small. You know how it goes." The words lingered in Josie's chest like smoke, long after Lena walked away. Later that evening, after picking Maisie up from Shauna's salon and getting her settled with a snack and a stack of crayons, Josie sat at the kitchen table and stared at the folder again. Her sketches, her name on the corner in pencil, her heart quietly hoping. She heard the familiar jingle of the door chime as Shauna stepped inside with a box of leftovers in hand. "Girl, tell me that's what I think it is," Shauna said, nodding at the open folder. Josie laughed softly. "Lena saw my sketches, asked me to help with the springboard, just unofficially." Shauna whistled. "Unofficial, my foot. That's how they test you, see if you're worth the spotlight without giving you one." "I'm not getting ahead of myself." "You're already ahead, honey. You're just pretending you're not." Josie closed the folder gently. "I just want to do the job, keep my head down, not make waves." Shauna tilted her head. "Is this about Grant?" Josie didn't answer right away. Instead, she said quietly, "He's been checking in, lightly. Not pushing, but he's there." Shauna raised an eyebrow. And it's confusing. I mean, he's Maisie's father, but he's also him. Grant Holloway. The CEO. The guy who lives in a penthouse and probably doesn't remember what it's like to split bills 3 ways. Shauna sat across from her. "Do you still feel something?" Josie's silence said everything. "You don't have to marry him," Shauna said. "But don't run from something just because it wasn't in the plan." "I didn't have a plan," Josie whispered. "I just had Maisie." "And survival." Shauna reached over and squeezed her hand. Saturday came quiet, golden, and slow. Maisie sat by the window, stringing beads onto a piece of yarn, her tongue poking out slightly in concentration. Josie sipped her tea and watched her daughter's fingers move, tiny and precise. Then the knock came, not loud. Just expectant. Josie opened the door and found Grant standing there with a brown paper bag in hand. "I brought cinnamon rolls," he said. Josie stared at him. "Is that a bribe? A peace offering?" She opened the door wider. "You know you didn't have to." "I know." He stepped in, eyes taking in the modest apartment without comment. "But I wanted to." Maisie beamed. "Hi, Mr. Grant." He smiled. "Hi, Maisie." She pointed to her necklace. "I made this. Want one?" "I'd be honored." She handed him a lopsided mess of blue and yellow beads, and he slipped it on over his button-down without hesitation. Josie watched, heart caught in her throat. Later, while Maisie napped on the couch, Grant and Josie sat on the back steps with paper cups of tea. He looked out across the little patch of yard. "You've done so much," he said. "Alone. I didn't have a choice. You had every excuse to give up. I had one reason not to." He looked at her. "I want to be part of her life. I don't know what that looks like yet, and I'm not asking for anything from you, but I want to try." Josie didn't speak right away. Then softly, "She draws you in every picture now." Grant swallowed. "I never wanted to be someone a kid had to draw in just to keep around. You're here now. That has to count for something." Josie looked at him then, really looked, and for the first time in years, something inside her dared to believe. Maybe beginnings didn't always come when you wanted them to. Sometimes they came when you least expected. Quiet. Unfolding. Real. Monday morning brought a chill that didn't match the Savannah spring air. Josie felt it the moment she stepped into the office. The way glances lingered just a little too long. The way conversations hushed when she walked by. Something had shifted. She took her seat at her desk, opened her inbox, and tried to drown the whispers with the rhythm of typing. Lena passed by with her usual stride, gave Josie a brief nod, but didn't stop. By noon, the unease had started to cling. "People are talking," Lena said bluntly when they met in the small glass-walled conference room later that afternoon. She set down a fabric board and closed the door behind her. Josie blinked. "About what?" "You?" "Grant. The usual rumors." Lena's voice wasn't cruel, but it wasn't soft either. Josie's chest tightened. "I haven't done anything wrong. I know that. But it's not about truth. It's about perception. You're new." "He's... him." Josie folded her arms, her voice low. "Is someone saying I only got this job because of him?" Lena didn't answer directly. She opened a folder instead. Inside were Josie's sketches again, some with notes scribbled in red. Edits. Suggestions. Praise. "Keep doing the work. That's how you silence them. But if this turns into something more personal, you'll need to draw a line between the desk and your heart." Josie stared at her. "Is that why you're warning me? Or are you asking me to back away? I'm telling you the truth. This place runs on talent and politics. Don't let either blindside you." Josie stood a little taller. "Then let me earn my place." "Nothing's been handed to me. Not even him." Lena nodded once. "Good." The meeting ended, but the tension didn't. By midweek, even Lewis had started watching her differently. Polite, yes, but guarded. As if he were waiting for her to stumble. The only time Josie felt like herself was during her lunch breaks, when she'd step into the unused design room, alone, and sketch quietly in the corner near the large bay windows. She never stayed long, just enough to remember why she was fighting so hard to stay. That Thursday afternoon, her phone lit up with a message. "Grant, are you free after work? Just for a walk. 5 minutes." "That's all." Josie hesitated. Then, "Meet me by the river steps at 6. She didn't know why she picked that spot. Maybe because it was public, neutral. Or maybe because the river made everything feel slower, softer, like time had a little grace to spare. She found him waiting near the railing, looking out at the water. No suit jacket today. Just rolled sleeves, and that quiet stillness he wore like a second skin. When he saw her, he smiled. Tentative. Careful. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "There are whispers." "I figured." His jaw clenched. "I've been trying to keep my distance." "Trying's not the same as succeeding." "I know." Josie folded her arms, wind catching a strand of her hair. I've worked hard to be invisible. Now it feels like all anyone sees is you. That's not fair to you. No, she said. But it's what's happening. He stepped closer. Do you want me to stop reaching out? Back off completely? She looked at him. Really looked. No. But I need you to understand. If I lose this job because people think I'm getting special treatment, I don't get another one like it. Not easily. I'd never let that happen. She gave a hollow laugh. You can't control what people think, Grant. But I can make sure they know I didn't put you here. She arched an eyebrow. Even if it means admitting we have history. His silence answered her before his words did. I'm trying to figure this out, he said. Every day, I walk into my own building and feel like I'm not supposed to want more than meetings and bottom lines. He paused. Then I saw you. Josie's voice was barely above a whisper. And now, I want to be a part of her life. And yours, if you'll let me. But not like this. Not in shadows. Not with guilt. I want to be someone who shows up for real. She stared at the water. I've spent 6 years making peace with being alone. It took everything I had. I don't know if I can go back to hoping. He took a breath. Then don't hope. Just let me be here. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Josie turned to him, her voice trembling. I'm scared of losing everything I've barely started building. Grant nodded slowly. Then let me help you build it. Their eyes met. No promises, no declarations. Just two people on a riverbank, standing in the slow space between the past and whatever came next. As they walked back toward the street, Josie felt his hand brush lightly against hers. She didn't pull away. But she didn't hold on either. Not yet. It was the second Monday of her new job, and the Savannah air already smelled like spring, pushing through the cracks of the city. Magnolias, fresh rain, and something just a little electric. Josie sat at her desk, fingers hovering over her keyboard, but her focus drifted. She could feel it, that subtle shift, the weight of too many eyes, the difference between curiosity and scrutiny. Lena stepped out of her office mid-morning, holding a color palette board and scanning the room like she was chasing something invisible. When her eyes landed on Josie, she gestured her over without a word. Josie followed, clutching her notebook, heart thudding. Inside the office, Lena laid the palette on the table. We need fresh eyes on this spring collection. The presentation's in 3 weeks. The board wants something Southern bold meets metropolitan clean. She made air quotes with one hand. I want you to take a stab at it. Josie blinked. Me? Lena sat down, her eyes steady. You. Off the clock. Quietly, think of it as extra credit. Josie hesitated. What about HR? I cleared it. It's unofficial, but if the ideas are good, they'll go in. And if you do this right, it could mean more than just being the assistant who files vendor reports. Josie nodded slowly. Okay, I'll do it, Lena smirked. That's the spirit. Deadline's Friday, no pressure. As Josie stepped out, Lewis passed her in the hallway. His expression was neutral, but his tone wasn't. Moving up fast, Miss Whitaker. Josie turned, surprised by the comment. Excuse me? He tilted his head. Some of us just had to climb slower, that's all. Before she could answer, he was gone. Back at her desk, she opened her notebook and took a long breath. She'd known this path wouldn't be easy. But now, every step forward felt like walking on glass. By late afternoon, she slipped into the design room, where soft music played low and 2 junior designers were pinning fabric samples to a board. Josie took a corner seat, laid out her sketch pad, and let herself sink into the work. She sketched like the pencil was pulling the truth out of her, lines curving into flowing skirts, sharp edges softening into fluid movement. She didn't think about Grant or Lewis or whispers in the hallway. She thought about her grandmother's hands guiding a sewing needle. About Maisie, spinning in second-hand dresses that felt brand new just because they were made with love. A voice broke the quiet. "You do realize people are noticing?" Josie looked up. Grant. He stood by the door, not entering, just watching. His sleeves were rolled again. Casual, but the tension in his jaw gave him away. Josie closed her sketchbook halfway. "I'm just working. I know, and you're good, but there's talk. There's always talk," she said. "Especially when a woman starts climbing." He stepped inside now, slow, careful. "Lena told me about the collection work. She said it was your idea to reinterpret the classic silhouettes with modern texture." "That's smart. It's not my job yet," she replied. "Just my passion." He came closer, but not too close. "I want to support you, Josie." "I do, but I don't want to hurt your chances either." Her voice dipped. "Then don't stand over me." "Don't protect me in front of others. Let me rise or fall on my own work." Grant swallowed hard. "I hear you." A pause. She turned back to her sketchbook. "You can look." He moved beside her as she flipped through the pages. Raw ideas, clean shapes, silhouettes paired with watercolor swatches. He didn't speak at first. Then, softly, "You were always more than a summer memory." Josie's breath caught, just slightly. "You think I forgot you," he said, "but I didn't. I remembered your laugh, the way you stared at the ocean like it owed you something. I thought maybe I made it all up." She looked at him now, eyes steady. "We didn't know each other." "No," he said. "But maybe now we can." The room stayed quiet, except for the soft music and the clinking of pins from the designers in the corner. Josie closed her sketchbook. "One day at a time." Grant nodded, stepping back. "Good luck," he said. "I'll see you around." When he left, she let herself breathe again, and then smiled. Friday arrived too fast. Josie turned in her concept board just after lunch. Her hands shook as she placed it on Lena's desk. Lena flipped through the designs with a poker face Josie couldn't read. Then she said only 2 words. "They're strong." No praise. No promise. But Josie felt the weight of those words. She carried them with her all the way home. That night, she tucked Maisie into bed, then stepped out onto the porch with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. The stars above Savannah blinked like soft reminders. "You're doing it." Slowly, quietly, but you're doing it. Her phone buzzed. "Grant. Maisie drew me another picture today. We're flying on a kite." "I have a cape," Josie smiled. "Josie, she thinks you're a superhero." A moment passed. "Grant, I want to be worthy of that." She didn't respond right away. She just stared at the stars, pulled the blanket tighter, and let herself feel the quiet hum of something rare, the beginning of being seen, not as someone's secret, but as someone becoming whole. The sun had barely crested the rooftops when Josie's phone rang. It wasn't the usual morning alarm or Shauna checking in. It was a number she didn't recognize. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello, Ms. Whitaker. This is Marcy from Ridgeview Elementary. We just wanted to let you know that Maisie's running a slight fever. Nothing too serious, but she seemed a bit off this morning." Josie sat up straighter. "Is she okay? Does she need to come home?" "She's resting now in the nurse's office. It's up to you. Just wanted to keep you in the loop." Josie glanced at the clock. Her shift hadn't even started yet. "I'll be there soon," she said, already reaching for her coat. She let Lena know on the way out, rushed but professional, and by the time she arrived at Ridgeview, the front office smelled of disinfectant and plastic pencil boxes, a far cry from the polished glass and clean lines of Holloway Group. Maisie was curled up in a blanket on a cushioned bench, her cheeks flushed, her eyes glassy but awake. "Mama," she whispered as soon as she saw her. "Oh, baby," Josie murmured, kneeling beside her. "You okay?" "I just feel heavy," Maisie mumbled. "Like my shoes are made of soup." Josie smiled softly, brushing the hair from her daughter's forehead. "Well, we'll get you home and into your favorite pajamas. Maybe some crackers and a movie marathon." Maisie gave a sleepy nod, and Josie signed her out with quiet gratitude. At home, the air felt gentler. Blankets thrown across the couch, lavender tea steaming on the counter, cartoons flickering softly on the TV. Maisie fell asleep by noon, her head on Josie's lap, tiny fingers curled around the edge of her sleeve. Josie sat there, phone on silent, inbox ignored. It wasn't until early afternoon that she checked her messages. 1 missed call from Lena. 2 from Grant. A text from Grant, short and immediate. "Is Maisie okay? I heard from Lewis you left early." Josie stared at the screen. Somehow that made her breath catch. She typed back, "She's home, low fever. Resting now." Within seconds, her phone buzzed. "Grant, can I drop something off? Soup? Juice? Whatever she likes. I won't stay." Josie hesitated. Her first instinct was to say no, but then she thought of the way Maisie had drawn him last night, again in a cape, this time holding her hand in the clouds. "Okay. Just knock. She's asleep." Less than an hour later, there was a soft knock at the door. Josie opened it quietly to find Grant standing there with a brown paper bag and a slightly sheepish expression. "I didn't know what kind, so I got 3 soups, and apple juice, and those crackers shaped like bunnies." Josie blinked, then smiled. "You raided the kid aisle. I panicked in aisle 4. He held out the bag. She took it carefully, their fingers brushing for the briefest second. "She's asleep," Josie said. "That's okay. I didn't expect to see her. Just wanted to help." She opened the door a little wider. "You want tea?" Grant blinked. "Now?" She nodded. "Yeah. Just tea." He stepped inside like someone who didn't want to hope too much, looking around the apartment like it might tell him more about her than she ever said out loud. Josie moved to the kitchen, filling the kettle, her voice quiet. "She talks about you a lot now." Grant leaned against the counter. "She does?" "She said you have a superhero voice. I don't even know what that means." He laughed under his breath. "I don't either." Josie poured the water, handed him a chipped mug. They stood in silence for a few moments, the kind that hovered with tension that wasn't entirely heavy, just unsaid. Then Grant spoke. "I've been thinking about that night we met." Josie didn't move. "I was arrogant back then, all flash, all charm. I didn't think about what it meant to leave and not look back." Josie turned to him. "I didn't expect you to stay. I didn't even expect to remember your name." Grant smiled faintly. "And yet here we are." She looked down at her tea. "When Maisie was born," she said, "I used to wonder if I should try harder to find you. But what would I say?" "Hi, remember me? We shared a weekend, and now you have a daughter?" I was 22, terrified. And tired, and I didn't want to be anyone's burden. "You're not," he said instantly. "You never were." Josie's voice was steady, but low. "Still feels like I'm living on the edge of being found out, at work, in life." He set down his mug. "Then let's change that." She looked up. You don't have to walk this alone anymore, Josie. I know I missed 6 years. I can't undo that, but I want to be here now. She studied his face. The lines around his eyes weren't from boardroom stress. They were from learning to carry the weight of his own expectations. And for the first time, she didn't see him as the CEO. She just saw the man who showed up, with crackers and juice and a look in his eyes that said, "I want to matter." The sound of a tiny cough from the couch made them both turn. Maisie stirred, eyes barely open. "Mama?" Josie moved quickly, kneeling beside her. "I'm here, baby." Maisie blinked, then saw Grant. "You came." He crouched down. "Just for a minute." "You smell like outside," she whispered, nose wrinkling. He chuckled. "Next time I'll wear bunny cracker cologne." Maisie smiled faintly and reached out. He took her hand, just for a moment. And in that small, quiet exchange, where no promises were made but something real passed between them, Josie felt the world shift again. Not with noise, but with presence. The gala was less than 2 weeks away. It was all anyone on the creative team could talk about. Fabric orders, lighting schemes, final fittings, and the guest list that seemed to grow by the hour. Josie tried to keep her head down, her focus sharp, but her name had started floating in conversations where it hadn't before. Not just as Lena's assistant, but as the designer behind 3 of the collection's centerpiece looks. She hadn't been credited publicly, of course. Not yet. But Lena had dropped her name in a senior meeting with Grant, sitting just 3 chairs away, and when he'd caught Josie's eyes across the boardroom table, his expression had said more than words could. Pride, admiration, maybe even something deeper. Now Josie stood alone in the back of the office storage room, arms crossed as she stared at one of her gowns on the dress form, peach silk, hand-draped, with a neckline that felt like summer rain. She heard footsteps behind her. "Lena sent me," Grant said softly. "Said you were hiding in the fabric vault." Josie turned. "I wasn't hiding. You always look at your work like that?" "Like what?" "Like you're waiting for it to disappoint you." Josie raised an eyebrow. "It's easier than hoping it'll hold up under scrutiny." He stepped closer, gaze shifting between her and the dress. "It's beautiful. I'm not sure it's finished." "Neither am I," he said. "But that doesn't mean it's not already worthy." She studied him for a beat. "You're getting good at sounding like someone who sees people." "I've had some practice lately." Their eyes held. Then she broke the moment with a breath. "You're coming to the gala." "I have to. It's tradition." "Diane's got half the board wrapped around her pearls." Josie gave a soft laugh. "I'm surprised she hasn't tried to cancel the whole thing just because I'm contributing." Grant smiled, but there was tension behind it. "She doesn't know." "Not yet. Lena's keeping it close." Josie's expression faltered. "You haven't told her about Maisie either, have you?" Silence. "I will," he said finally. I need the right moment." "She's 6, Grant. The right moment was years ago." "I know." He sounded tired. Like a man balancing 2 lives on a tight wire. "She's going to be there," he said suddenly. "Diane." Josie didn't react. She requested to speak at the opening, probably to make sure everyone remembers the Holloway name built this company. "And what are you going to say?" Grant looked at her, then down at the floor. "Depends on whether you're there." Josie's breath caught. "I'm not part of the invite list." "You will be. That's not your decision to make." He met her eyes again, voice low. "I want you there." Josie turned toward the dress, her fingers smoothing the silk along the waistline. I've spent the last 6 years building myself from threads. I don't want to unravel just because your mother can't handle seeing me in heels. Grant moved closer, but didn't touch her. I don't care what she thinks anymore. Josie's voice dropped. Then say that to her. Not to me. A beat passed, then another. Finally he nodded once and stepped back. I'll see you at the review meeting. She didn't look up until after the door closed behind him. By the following Monday, her name had appeared discreetly on the internal email for final showcase contributors. No title. No spotlight. Just a name at the bottom of the list. Josie Whitaker. When Lena handed her the official lanyard with the staff access badge, she didn't say much. Just, don't waste this. That night, back home, Maisie twirled in the hallway wearing Josie's scarf as a cape. I'm going to be your assistant, she said proudly. Josie laughed from the kitchen. Oh yeah? What's your job? To tell people you're the best. And to make sure you eat snacks. Well, that sounds like a very important position. Maisie beamed. As bedtime approached, Josie tucked her into bed, brushing a curl away from her forehead. Hey, Maisie whispered. Will he be there? Who? Mr. Grant. Josie hesitated. Probably. Maisie's voice was soft. I hope he wears a bow tie. Josie smiled. We'll see. She turned off the lamp, stepped into the living room, and let the quiet wrap around her. The dress hung from the hallway door, pressed, ready. And somewhere across the city, Diane Holloway was likely selecting which pearls to wear to remind the world who she was. But Josie? Josie was just trying to remember who she was becoming. Not someone's secret, not someone's mistake, just someone worth standing in the room. The Holloway Spring Gala shimmered like something out of a dream Josie never let herself have. The ballroom had been transformed. Soft amber lighting swept across the walls, flickering off crystal glasses and silverware polished to a mirror shine. Floral arrangements burst with color at every corner, and a string quartet played beneath a draped canopy near the stage. Servers moved like shadows, balancing trays and careful glances, while laughter danced beneath the chandeliers. Josie stood just beyond the grand entrance, her badge discreetly tucked beneath her dress coat, heart pounding harder than it should have. She wore black, not to blend in, but to steady herself. A simple satin gown she'd altered at home, fitted at the waist, soft at the shoulders. It wasn't loud, but it was hers. She didn't belong to the guest list. But she belonged to the room. At least that's what she whispered to herself as she scanned the crowd. Across the ballroom, Grant moved with practiced ease. A nod here, a handshake there. He wore a dark tailored suit, a silver tie, elegant, restrained, but his eyes were searching. When they found her, something softened. He excused himself from a board member and crossed the room in slow, even strides. Josie held her ground, but her fingers tightened around her clutch. You came, he said. You sent a badge, she replied, and you still owe me an explanation. Grant's smile faltered. You mean my mother? Let's not pretend it's a surprise she's here. She's not just here. She's speaking in 10 minutes. Josie raised an eyebrow. And? And I haven't told her. She blinked. About Maisie? She asked. Or about me? Grant exhaled. Either. The string quartet shifted into a softer melody. Somewhere nearby, champagne glasses clinked. Josie's voice dipped. You said you didn't care what people thought anymore. I don't, he said. But she controls the family foundation. And she's not just my mother. She's the face people recognize when they look at this company's history. Josie's throat tightened. So I'm still just a complication. No? You're a truth I wasn't ready to live out loud. She turned away slightly, scanning the crowd. Do you know how that feels? To walk into a room you've helped build and have to pretend you're invisible? I see you, Josie. That's not enough anymore. Grant's voice dropped. What do you want from me? I want you to stop whispering me into your life. I want to be someone you stand beside without needing a stage cue. He didn't answer. Not right away. Then, quietly, she's going to talk about legacy. Josie looked at him. And what are you going to talk about? He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Maybe it's time I rewrite what legacy means. Before she could respond, a polite chime rang out, and the lights dimmed slightly. A tall woman in cream silk stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand. Diane Holloway. Regal, poised, the room falling into reverent silence around her. Thank you all for joining us this evening, Diane began. Tonight, we celebrate creativity, innovation, and the future of Holloway Group. A future rooted in tradition, yes, but also shaped by vision. She smiled, practiced. We are here tonight, not just to honor the designers, but to remember who we are. Josie's breath caught. She doesn't know, she whispered. No, Grant said. But she will. As Diane continued, Josie turned to go, but Lena appeared at her side, her expression unreadable. Leaving already? She asked. I'm not part of the show. You're more part of it than half the people in that room, Lena said. And by the way, your peach gown made the cover of the preview booklet. Uncredited, of course. For now. Josie swallowed hard. And you're okay with that? I'm okay with building something that lasts, that starts with talent. Not titles. On stage, Diane concluded her speech with a grand gesture toward the main display, and the first model stepped onto the runway platform in Josie's design, peach silk under golden lights, the fabric catching every whisper of motion like it had a voice of its own. The room erupted in polite applause. Lena nodded toward the stage. You want recognition? Make them ask who designed it. Josie stood still, the applause washing over her like a wave she hadn't prepared for. Then a second microphone lit up. Grant. He stepped onto the platform with a quiet confidence, dressed to belong but speaking like a man who didn't need the spotlight. Thank you, Diane, he said. And thank you all for being here tonight. He paused, eyes scanning the room until they landed on Josie. There's been a lot of talk about legacy lately, about what we leave behind. But I've started thinking more about what we stand for while we're still here. He glanced toward the model in Josie's dress. This company was built by visionaries, but it's carried forward by the people who bring something new to the table. People who don't ask for applause. They just work. Josie froze. Grant's voice softened. So tonight, I want to recognize the quiet hands behind the boldest pieces you'll see. One of them belongs to someone who walked in here without a nameplate, without a title, and reminded us what creativity really looks like. The crowd turned, eyes following his gaze. Josie Whitaker, he said, you've changed the way I see everything. A heartbeat passed. 2. Then applause broke out. Genuine, surprised, slow at first, then building. Josie stood frozen. Lena leaned in and whispered, Don't just stand there. Go. Josie stepped forward, not toward the stage, but toward herself. And this time, she didn't feel invisible. She felt known. The gala had ended, but the moment had not. Josie stood near the edge of the ballroom floor, applause still ringing faintly in her ears as guests filtered out into the warm Savannah night. The hush that followed felt louder than the clapping had been. She wasn't sure if her hands were trembling or if the entire room had just shifted around her. "Josie," Grant said softly behind her. She turned, heart pounding. "What you did. You didn't have to." "Yes," he said. "I did." Before she could answer, Diane appeared, poised, untouched by emotion, flanked by 2 board members and a glass of untouched champagne. "Grant." Her voice was smooth but edged. "A word?" He glanced at Josie, then followed his mother a few feet away. Josie didn't move. She didn't need to. Diane's voice, though hushed, carried enough for the truth to slip out like steam from a kettle. "You embarrassed me." Grant stood taller. "I told the truth. You turned a company function into a confessional." She deserved to be seen. "She helped build tonight. Is that what this is now?" Diane's voice sharpened, though it never rose. "A stage for second chances and sentimental distractions?" "She's not a distraction." "Then what is she?" Grant didn't flinch. "She's the mother of my daughter." Silence fell like glass shattering beneath velvet. Diane blinked, her lips parted, but no words came. When she finally spoke, it was quieter than before. "You've known?" "Not for long," he said, "but long enough." Diane's eyes flicked toward Josie, who stood where she had since the beginning, watching everything with calm she didn't feel. "She kept that from you. She raised Maisie without me. Alone. With grace." Diane looked down, adjusting her bracelet, the only sign of discomfort she allowed. "And now what?" she asked. "You plan to parade them through boardrooms and galas as if nothing happened?" "No," Grant said. "I plan to stand beside them in boardrooms and life, because it's long past time I did." Diane turned and looked directly at Josie then, expression unreadable. "You're braver than I gave you credit for," she said. Josie held her gaze. "Not brave. Just done hiding." A beat passed. Then Diane stepped back. "Then I suppose we all are." She walked away, chin high, heels clicking against marble, as the air between them slowly settled. Grant returned to Josie's side. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For waiting this long." Josie shook her head. "She needed to hear it from you." "Not in whispers, not someday. Tonight." He nodded slowly, taking her hand. "So where do we go from here?" Before she could answer, Lena approached with a rare softness in her usually sharp eyes. "They want to meet you," she said. "The board." "Nothing official, but they want to know who's behind the collection." Josie blinked. "Me?" "You," Lena said, "and not just because of what Grant said. Because of what you did." Josie looked at Grant, then back at Lena. "Okay." She followed Lena across the room, past empty glasses and half-finished conversations. The board members waited near the stage, polite smiles and curious expressions greeting her like a soft wave. Introductions followed, measured, respectful. They asked questions. She answered them with quiet confidence. They commented on the sketches. She explained her choices. No apologies. No pretending. She was no longer the girl who needed permission to stand in the room. An hour later, Josie stood outside the ballroom doors, the cool night brushing against her skin. The stars were out, and the sounds of valet calls and distant jazz floated on the wind. Grant joined her, hands in his pockets, his expression unguarded for once. "You still with me?" he asked. Josie leaned against the railing, her voice calm. "You told your mother." "I did." She didn't scream. "No," he said. "But I think that might have been worse." Josie let out a soft laugh. Maybe. Grant turned to her, his voice more serious now. I don't want to pretend anymore, Josie. Not at work. Not with Maisie, not with you. She looked up at him. I don't want promises, Grant. Not out of guilt, not out of momentum. I want something real. He stepped closer. Then let's build something real, not perfect, not fast. Just honest. Josie didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her clutch and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Maisie's latest drawing. It showed a tall man, a woman in a dress, and a little girl in the middle. No capes this time, just hands held, hearts visible. She said you looked better without a cape, Josie said softly. Grant smiled, eyes fixed on the drawing. I've never felt more human. The wind picked up, brushing against their arms. Josie took his hand. Not out of ceremony, out of choice. And together, they stood there, two people no longer defined by the moment they lost each other, but by the one where they finally stopped running. It had been 3 days since the gala. 3 days since Diane's stare softened just enough to acknowledge Josie as something more than an inconvenience. 3 days since Grant stood in front of a ballroom full of Savannah's elite and spoke her name like it belonged there. But Josie hadn't heard from him since. Not a call, not a text. She told herself not to read into it. People got busy. They processed. They hesitated. Still, the silence pressed down like damp linen. She was standing by the copier in the back office, stapling design packets, when Lena appeared at her side without warning. Thought you might want to see this, she said, sliding a folded brochure across the counter. Josie opened it. Her peach silk dress, the one from the gala, filled the cover. The photo was from the moment the model stepped under the spotlight, fabric rippling like light on water. At the bottom, designed by Josie Whitaker. Josie blinked. How? Lena smirked. Board approved it yesterday. They're putting your name forward for a junior designer contract. 6-month trial, paid. Josie couldn't speak. You've earned this, Lena added, quieter now. Not because Grant said your name, because your work finally did. Josie held the brochure like it might disappear. Don't get soft on me now, Lena muttered. You've still got deadlines. That night, Josie sat on the floor of the living room. Maisie asleep on the couch under her favorite quilt. Crayons scattered across the coffee table. The apartment was dim, quiet, except for the hum of the fridge and the soft creak of the ceiling fan. She stared at her sketchbook, pages half filled, ideas unfinished. Then a knock came at the door. Not loud, not urgent. She opened it to find Grant standing there in a navy sweater, his eyes searching hers. I didn't want to crowd you, he said. After everything. I figured. He hesitated. I needed time to think. Not because of you. Because of what it means to shift a life that's always been managed. Josie leaned against the doorframe. Did you figure it out? He nodded once. You can't manage love, or parenthood, or healing. You just show up. She studied him. And are you showing up now? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded slip of paper. Maisie's school drawing. This has been on my desk for 3 days, he said. I keep looking at it and realizing I'm the only thing missing from her world that she's still trying to include. Josie's throat tightened. She deserves consistency, he continued. Not visits when it's convenient. Not appearances when it's impressive. She deserves someone who wakes up thinking about what she needs. You're not just talking about her, Josie said, voice soft. No, he admitted. I'm not. They stood in that fragile quiet again. Josie glanced back at the couch, then stepped aside. Grant entered slowly, as though not wanting to disturb the balance of her space. He saw Maisie asleep, a crayon still tucked in her little hand. "She missed you," Josie said. "I missed her," he whispered. They sat together at the edge of the couch, neither speaking for a long while, just watching Maisie breathe, the rise and fall of her chest, a quiet metronome grounding them both. "I don't want to be a storm in your life, Josie," he said finally. She looked at him. "Then don't be," she said. "Be shelter." His eyes met hers. "I can't promise I won't mess up." "No one gets it perfect," she said. "But showing up, that's a start." Maisie stirred and blinked up at them, squinting in the dim light. "Mr. Grant?" "Hey, kiddo," he said gently. "Sorry I woke you." "You didn't," she said, smiling sleepily. "I was dreaming about us making pancakes," he grinned. "That sounds like a pretty great dream. Can we do it for real?" Josie glanced at him, and Grant looked at Maisie. "I'd love that," he said. Maisie yawned, nestled into Josie's side, and closed her eyes again. And just like that, it wasn't about the gala or the boardroom anymore. It was about a little girl who drew her world in 3 colors and kept making space for someone who hadn't earned it, yet still wanted to try. That night, after Grant left quietly, Josie sat on the porch with a blanket and her sketchbook. She didn't draw gowns or runway looks. She drew a home. 3 figures, a porch swing, and beneath it, a simple note she hadn't written in years. "Ours, if we choose it." Saturday morning arrived with sun streaming through the windows, painting warm gold across the floorboards of Josie's apartment. The scent of vanilla pancakes drifted from the kitchen, mingling with the soft sound of Maisie's humming as she sat at the table, her legs swinging beneath her chair. Grant stood over the stove, flipping pancakes with a surprising ease that made Josie tilt her head and watch, arms crossed from the archway. "You've done this before," she said. He glanced back, grinning. "College. I lived with 3 guys who couldn't boil water. It was pancakes or starvation. Survival skills. Impressive." He lifted a perfectly golden round from the pan and placed it onto Maisie's plate. "I have layers." Maisie, already halfway through decorating her stack with berries, looked up. "Mr. Grant, you're really good at pancakes." "Well, I take that as the highest honor," he said with mock formality. Josie moved to pour coffee, stealing another glance at Grant. This felt easy. Strange, maybe, but not foreign. Like a memory that had finally grown into the present. They sat around the table, her, Grant, Maisie, passing syrup, trading smiles. The kind of morning that didn't ask for anything loud, just presence. After breakfast, Maisie disappeared into her room to work on a secret art project, leaving Josie and Grant to clean up the kitchen together. She handed him a dish towel. "You rinse, I dry?" "Deal." As the faucet ran and dishes clinked quietly between them, Grant broke the rhythm. "She calls me Mr. Grant. I was thinking, maybe I could ask her to just call me Grant." "Or something else, if you're okay with it." Josie paused, plate in hand. "What would you want her to call you?" "I don't know," he said. "I don't want to push anything. I just want to know who I am to her, what I can be." Josie set the plate down and looked at him. "She already knows who you are. Kids see more than we do. If you keep showing up like this, she'll find the name for you herself." Grant nodded, wiping his hands on the towel. "Fair enough." Later that afternoon, they took Maisie downtown for the art fair in Forsyth Park. Canvases stretched between booths. Handmade jewelry sparkled under the sun. and the scent of kettle corn filled the air. Maisie tugged on Grant's hand, pointing at a stall selling tiny clay animals. "She's going to ask for one of everything," Josie whispered. "I'm prepared," he said. "I brought bribe money." Sure enough, 10 minutes later, Maisie had a clay cat, a tiny turtle, and a sparkly painted seashell tucked into a bag swinging from her wrist. As they strolled past a face-painting booth, Grant turned to Josie. "She's happy." "She is," Josie said, watching Maisie twirl in the grass. "And you're part of that." He looked at her then, really looked. "So are you." Josie smiled, the kind that crept up slowly and lingered. They sat on a bench while Maisie joined a chalk drawing contest nearby. Grant leaned back, watching her with quiet awe. "She draws you all the time," Josie said. "You're in her skies, her parks." "Her houses." He turned toward Josie. "And what about you? Where do I live in your world?" She met his eyes, the weight of his question landing fully. "I'm still figuring that out," she said honestly. "But lately, I think you're somewhere I don't feel like I have to hide." He nodded slowly, letting that sit between them. They walked back to the car as the sun dipped low. Josie opened the back door for Maisie, who climbed in and buckled herself in with sleepy satisfaction. Grant closed her door gently, then turned to Josie. "Can I ask something?" he said. "Something bigger." Josie stilled. "Go ahead. What would it look like? If this was more than visits? If I was really in this with you?" "Co-parenting. Decisions. Maybe more." She looked up at him, heart thudding, not with fear, but with the echo of something that once felt impossible. "It would look like Sunday mornings with mismatched socks," she said. "It would look like grocery lists and lunchbox notes. It would look like patience, Grant." "Real patience." He stepped closer. "I can do patience." Josie studied him for a moment. "I believe you," she said. He didn't reach for her. She didn't move toward him. But the quiet between them wrapped around the promise already forming, one day at a time, not defined by the past, but built from what they chose to show up for. They drove home as dusk painted the sky lavender, and for the first time in years, Josie let the silence stretch across the drive without filling it. It was full already, with enough. The morning of Maisie's school art showcase began with glitter on the counter, paint on Josie's forearm, and a ribbon-wrapped shoebox that held a project titled "My Family in the Sky." Josie knelt beside Maisie at the entryway, adjusting the small, star-shaped clip in her hair. "You ready?" Maisie nodded hard, holding her box like a treasure. "I made us flying. You and me and Mr. Grant. But I didn't give us wings. Just clouds. 'Cause we don't need wings to float if we've got each other." Josie blinked back a sudden sting behind her eyes. "That's beautiful, baby." Grant arrived just before they left, a thermos in one hand and a bouquet of small sunflowers in the other. "For the artist," he said as Maisie squealed and hugged his legs. He looked at Josie as he handed her the coffee. "And for her manager/stylist." Josie laughed softly. That's dangerously accurate. They drove together, Maisie narrating every street corner like it was her personal stage. By the time they reached the school, Josie could see Grant's hands clenching and unclenching at his sides as they walked the hallway lined with finger paintings and macaroni mosaics. "You nervous?" she asked. He gave a crooked smile, terrified. "Welcome to being a parent." In the classroom, tables were pushed aside to make room for chairs, and student art filled the bulletin boards. Josie and Grant found seats in the second row, and Maisie took her place near the front with her classmates, beaming as she held her shoebox tightly to her chest. The teacher, Mrs. Klein, gave a brief welcome before inviting each child to present their project. When Maisie's turn came, she stood with surprising calm, setting her box carefully on the table. "This is my family in the sky," she began. "My mom is the bright one, 'cause she makes stuff from nothing. Mr. Grant is the tall cloud, 'cause he's quiet but you can always see him. And I'm the little one that keeps bouncing." Laughter filled the room, warm and unforced. She glanced at Josie and Grant, then added, "Sometimes families aren't made all at once. Sometimes they take time, but when they're real, they stay." Josie's throat tightened as applause followed. Grant reached over and touched her hand under the table. She didn't pull away. After the showcase, as parents mingled and the children raced around high on praise and juice boxes, Diane Holloway appeared in the doorway. Josie stiffened. She hadn't been told Diane was coming. Diane stepped into the room slowly, clearly out of place in her cream linen suit and low heels, her gaze scanning until it landed on Grant. Then Maisie. Then Josie. Grant stepped toward her. "Mom?" "You didn't mention—" "I was invited by the school board," Diane said, then turned to Josie. "You didn't tell me she was so expressive." "She gets that from her mom," Grant offered, his voice steady. Diane looked at Maisie again, who was now twirling in a circle with another girl, oblivious to the weight in the air. "She looks like you," Diane murmured. "But the eyes, those are Holloway eyes." Josie didn't speak. "I made mistakes," Diane said quietly. "Thinking silence was protection. But I see now. Hiding things didn't protect you, Grant. It just delayed the truth." He nodded slowly. "I'd like to get to know her," Diane added, "if that's something allowed." Josie exchanged a look with Grant, then said softly, "Maisie doesn't need perfect. She just needs people who show up." Diane nodded. "Then I'd like to try." Later, back at the apartment, the air felt different. Maisie was napping, her glitter-covered shoes kicked off by the door, and Josie was curled on the couch beside Grant, a sketchbook resting on her knees. "You handled that well," she said. "I didn't plan for it," he replied. "Sometimes the things that change us the most show up without warning." He glanced down at her sketch. Soft outlines of a woman, a man, and a little girl sitting under a tree. Simple. Unfinished. "Is that us?" Josie looked up. "It could be." He leaned in, his voice low. "I'd like it to be." She hesitated, then reached for his hand. No speeches, no promises. Just a quiet answer to a question long unspoken. She squeezed once, and this time she didn't let go. The morning air was soft, tinted with the faintest blush of spring. Josie stood barefoot on the back porch of her new apartment, a space twice the size of the last, with real hardwood floors and a washer that didn't need coaxing. The porch overlooked a patch of shared green space where Maisie was currently setting up a picnic for her dolls, complete with juice boxes and folded napkins. Inside, the kitchen smelled like fresh coffee and warm banana bread. Grant was at the counter, buttering slices, sleeves rolled, humming to a tune playing low from the speaker on the windowsill. Something jazz. Something calm. Josie leaned against the doorway, arms crossed loosely, watching them both. She still wasn't used to this kind of stillness. It wasn't the absence of struggle. That never left completely. But something had shifted. The weight she used to carry in every breath now felt shared, and lighter for it. Grant glanced up, catching her gaze. "I added walnuts this time. Too far?" She smiled. "We'll allow it." He carried 2 plates outside, setting one at the tiny table beside Maisie's dolls. She grinned up at him. "You remembered my napkin trick?" "Of course," he said, folding the corner exactly the way she'd shown him last week. "I'm a fast learner." Josie stepped outside, mug in hand, the grass cool beneath her feet. "She's got you trained. And proud of it." They sat together under the small awning while Maisie narrated her doll's picnic, assigning voices and personalities with the precision of a playwright. Grant passed Josie a slice of bread, their fingers brushed. Neither pulled away. "You remember the first day I walked into your office?" she asked after a moment. "I remember everything about that day. I thought I'd ruined it all the moment you looked at her." "At Maisie?" "You didn't," he said softly. "You made it make sense." They sat in silence, the good kind, the earned kind. Later that afternoon, they drove to Holloway Group's downtown building. Maisie skipped ahead down the marble hall, stopping to wave at the security guard, who now knew her name. The elevator dinged. "Why are we here again?" Josie asked, glancing sideways at Grant. "You'll see." He led her to the 11th floor. Once unfamiliar, now a place she belonged. Lena was waiting, clipboard in hand, her expression unreadable. "Nice of you to show up on a Saturday," she said. "You said it was important." "It is." Lena stepped aside, revealing a large canvas hanging just inside the conference gallery, a promotional feature for the upcoming design initiative. A photo of Josie's most celebrated gown was blown up, captioned with her name. No assistant title. No asterisk. Just Josie Whitaker, lead designer, Spring Vision line. Josie's breath caught. "You're not part-time anymore," Lena said. "Board approved your contract. You'll have your own workstation." "A team. You're officially in." Josie blinked once, twice. "You're serious?" "As a linen shortage during Fashion Week." Grant squeezed her hand. "Congratulations," he said, his voice quiet but proud. Josie swallowed hard. "Thank you." Lena handed her a new badge. It gleamed, crisp and real. Afterward, they walked through the city, nowhere to be, just letting the day stretch wide. They passed the park where Maisie had first drawn them together on paper. They passed the bakery where Grant brought soup and awkward apologies. They passed the quiet bench near the riverfront where she once told him she was done hiding. Now they didn't hide. That evening, back home, Maisie set up her sketchbook at the kitchen table and began drawing again. Josie knelt beside her. "What are you working on this time?" Maisie held up the paper proudly. It showed 3 figures, a tall one with a tie, a medium one in a dress, and a small one with bright curls. But this time there were no clouds, no wings, just a porch, a table, and a sign overhead that said home. "What do you think?" Maisie asked. Josie kissed the top of her head. "I think it's perfect." Later, after dinner, after bath time, after Maisie fell asleep mid-sentence holding one of her clay animals, Josie stood by the bedroom doorway watching her. Grant came up beside her. "She's a storyteller," he said. "She gets that from you," she replied. He shook his head. "She gets her bravery from you." Josie leaned her head against his shoulder, quiet for a moment. "You really meant what you said, about not managing life anymore. About showing up." "I did." "And this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Is this real for you?" He turned toward her, brushing her hair gently back from her face. "It's the most real thing I've ever felt." They stood like that, wrapped in the stillness of a night that didn't ask for more. A few moments later, Josie walked to the porch, sketchbook in hand. She sat beneath the string lights Grant had helped her hang last weekend, the ones that turned this small outdoor space into a quiet kind of magic. She opened to a blank page. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't draw dresses. She drew roots, beneath a house, beneath feet. Anchored, unmoving, and at the center, a small heart. Not floating anymore, just home. If you enjoyed this video, comment 1 to let me know. If not, comment 2. Your thought mattered to me either way.